The gym was alive with the usual sounds of early morning. Weight plates clanging, sneakers squeaking across rubber mats, and the low thump of music playing through a Bluetooth speaker in the corner. The smell of chalk and sweat filled the air. Regulars moved through their routines with quiet discipline, nodding to each other between sets, speaking in low voices. It was just another Wednesday, or so everyone thought. Near the back of the gym, a trainer was holding court. His name was Marcus, and he was the kind of guy who always had something to say. Loud, confident, and always performing for whoever was watching. He wore a sleeveless shirt that showed off his arms, and he walked around the floor like he owned every square inch of it. His clients liked him well enough, but the other trainers kept a quiet distance. They had learned that Marcus never missed a chance to make himself look bigger by making someone else feel smaller. That morning, a new face had walked through the front doors. He moved slowly, deliberately, the way someone moves when they have absolutely nothing to prove. He was older, heavy-set, dressed simply in dark sweats and a plain gray shirt. His hair was slightly disheveled. No gym bag with brand logos. No wireless earbuds. No entourage. He signed in quietly at the front desk, exchanged a few soft words with the receptionist, and made his way to the open mat area near the far wall. Nobody recognized him at first. A few regulars glanced over briefly, then looked away. He was just another older guy, they figured. Someone's dad, maybe. Someone trying to get back into shape. The kind of person
Never meet your heroes, but you should meet Steven Seagal. Total.
Marcus usually ignored, unless there was an opportunity for a joke. And Marcus, being Marcus, found that opportunity almost immediately. He was between clients, leaning against the cable machine, scrolling his phone when he spotted the older man settling into a slow, deliberate warm-up on the mat. Marcus watched for a moment, tilting his head slightly. Then he looked over at a group of younger gym members nearby and let a slow grin spread across his face. He walked over, loud enough for people around him to hear.
Listen, no dumb shit. He was trying to call Putin when I was sitting with him. I was like,
"Hey, big guy," he called out, his voice carrying that sharp, mocking tone he had perfected over years. "You sure you're in the right place? The smoothie bar is back that way." A few people nearby snickered nervously. Marcus looked pleased with himself. The older man stopped his warm-up. He looked up slowly, unhurried, and met Marcus's eyes with a gaze that was completely still. Not angry, not embarrassed, just still, like deep water. "I think I'm fine right here," he said quietly. His voice was low, calm, and carried a weight that was difficult to describe. Marcus didn't read the room. He never did. "No, seriously, man," Marcus continued, spreading his arms wide for the audience he assumed he had. "We've got a beginner's class on Saturdays. Stretching, light cardio, very gentle. Sounds like it might be more your speed." More laughter, a little louder this time, though some people had already gone quiet and were watching carefully. The older man said nothing. He simply looked at Marcus for a moment, then went back to his warm-up. That silence seemed to irritate Marcus more than any argument could have. He stepped a little closer. "I'm just saying, someone could get hurt if they don't know what they're doing in here. I've seen it happen." He glanced back at the small crowd that had gathered, expecting approval, expecting the performance to land. But something in the room had shifted. A few of the longer-standing gym members had started looking at each other with odd expressions, not laughing anymore. Something else was crossing their faces. Something like recognition, slow and dawning, the way it feels when you're trying to remember a name that's right on the tip of your tongue. One of the older trainers near the free weights area had gone completely still. He was staring at the man on the mat with wide eyes, his water bottle frozen halfway to his mouth. The older man on the mat finished his warm-up calmly, rolled his shoulders once, and rose to his feet. He was not tall, but the way he stood made the space around him feel different somehow. There was a quality to his stillness that was almost impossible to explain to someone who hadn't seen it. Like watching a mountain decide to pay attention. He looked at Marcus again, patient, unhurried. "Would you like to work on something together?" he asked simply. Marcus laughed. He actually laughed. He looked around at the people nearby, spreading his hands wide as if to say, "Can you believe this guy? Work on something? Sure, old man. Let's see what you've got." He cracked his knuckles and stepped onto the mat with the kind of exaggerated confidence that only people with very little real confidence actually use. Now, if you were watching this right now and you had to choose, would you have done what this man did, staying calm, accepting the challenge quietly, or would you have just walked away? Drop your answer in the comments. I genuinely want to know. The mat area had become the center of the entire gym. Conversations had stopped. Treadmills slowed as people turned their heads. Someone near the entrance had discreetly pulled out their phone. The morning light came through the high windows and fell across the two figures standing opposite each other, one young, loud, and grinning, the other older, quiet, and completely at ease. Marcus shifted his weight, bouncing lightly on his feet. He was fit, trained, and confident. He did this for a living. He had trained fighters, worked with athletes, and he wore that experience like armor. Whatever this older guy had, Marcus figured it couldn't be much. What followed was not a fight. It was a lesson. The older man moved with a kind of fluid, effortless precision that nobody in that gym had ever seen up close before.
Pretty hate me. That's one step too far. Let's just chill for a second.
Every time Marcus reached, pushed, or tried to establish control, something seemed to simply redirect, rebalance, dissolve. It wasn't dramatic. There were no flying kicks, no shouts, no movie-style theatrics. It was quiet and almost gentle, which made it somehow even more astonishing. Within about 45 seconds, Marcus found himself flat on the mat, completely still, staring up at the fluorescent lights above him with an expression of pure, uncomprehending shock. He hadn't even seen it happen. The older man stepped back, calm as he had been from the very beginning, and extended a hand to help Marcus up. The gym was absolutely silent. And that was the moment when someone near the back wall said it, just loud enough for the words to reach everyone in the room. Quiet but clear, spreading like a ripple across still water. That's Seagal. 3 words. That was all it took. The silence that followed those 3 words was a different kind of silence. The first silence had been shock. This one was something else entirely. It was the silence of understanding arriving all at once, of every moment of the last 10 minutes being replayed in everyone's mind simultaneously, but now with a completely different picture behind it. The older trainer near the free weights had known. He had recognized him from the moment he walked in and had said nothing, watching quietly to see how things would unfold. Now he set down his water bottle slowly, shaking his head with what looked like the beginning of a smile. Marcus was still on his feet, the hand that had been offered to help him up now hanging in the air between them. He took it after a moment, slowly, the color having drained almost entirely from his face. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. If you were Marcus in this exact moment, what would you say? Honestly, I want you to think about that. Write it in the comments. Stand there and imagine that silence and those eyes on you and that hand reaching out, and tell me what words you would find. Seagal said nothing for a moment. He simply waited while Marcus steadied himself, then looked at him with those same quiet, level eyes that had not changed expression once through the entire morning. You did well, Seagal said softly. Honestly, you have good instincts and real strength. That came through clearly. He paused, and his voice remained genuinely kind, with no trace of sarcasm. The technique will come, but the physical ability is already there. You should be proud of that. Marcus stared at him. Around the mat, people were exchanging glances of absolute disbelief. Not just at the reversal of what had happened, but at this. At the grace of what was being said. The man who had been publicly mocked was now offering something real and generous to the person who had done the mocking. Without conditions. Without performance. Just quietly, plainly, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Because for him it was. One of the gym members near the entrance still had his phone up. He wasn't even sure when he had started recording. His hands were trembling slightly. Seagal looked at the small gathering of people standing around the mat and addressed them in that same low, measured tone. Not performing, not lecturing, just speaking. Everyone in here has something to offer, he said. Experience is worth something, but it doesn't make anyone better than anyone else as a person. I have been training since I was a very young man. I have spent decades studying these arts, and I still learn something new every single day. The moment you think you know everything, you stop growing. The moment you use what you know to put someone else down, you begin to lose it. He looked directly at Marcus for a moment, not unkindly, and then looked away. Train hard, he said simply. That is enough. He walked back to his mat, picked up his towel, and went back to his workout like nothing had happened at all. The gym took several long seconds to remember how to function. Then slowly, one by one, people returned to what they had been doing. But the air in that room was different now. Something had happened that morning that most of those people would carry with them for a very long time. Marcus stood at the edge of the mat, alone, looking at the floor. One of the younger trainers who had been laughing earlier walked past him without saying a word. Not cruelly. There was nothing left to say. The moment had said everything. Now here is what made the next part of this story so extraordinary. Nobody in that gym posted the video immediately. That in itself was unusual. The person who had recorded it held on to it for almost 2 full days, not quite sure what to do with it, watching it back several times on his phone in quiet moments, showing it to a friend, then another friend. Each person who watched it had the same reaction, a long pause, a slow exhale, and then some version of the same question, spoken softly. Did you see how he handled that? Not the technique on the mat, not the reversal of fortunes, how he handled the whole thing, from the first moment to the last. The stillness at the beginning, the acceptance of the challenge without anger, the hand extended to help someone up who had just tried to humiliate him. And those words, quiet and genuine, finding something real to praise in the very person who had mocked him. When the clip was finally posted, it moved fast. Within 6 hours, it had 250,000 views. Within 24 hours, that number had multiplied by a factor most people struggle to comprehend. The comments section became something unusual for the internet, a place that often defaults to noise and outrage. People were writing paragraphs, real ones. People were talking about their fathers, their coaches, old teachers, moments when someone had shown them grace under pressure and how those moments had shaped them. People were sharing the video with captions like "This is what I needed to see today and watch until the end. It changes." Some of the top comments were from martial artists and trainers themselves, people who understood exactly what they had seen technically and were trying to explain it to others in terms that made it accessible. But even they kept coming back to the same thing, not the technique, but the behavior, the restraint, the generosity. One comment, which gathered more replies than most threads on the entire platform, simply read, "He could have ended that man in 10 seconds. He chose to teach him instead. That is not weakness. That is the highest form of strength there is." Seagal himself never commented publicly on the video. He didn't need to. But Marcus did. 3 days after the clip went viral, he posted a short video from his phone. No production value, no careful lighting, no performance. Just him, sitting in his car, clearly having thought carefully about what he wanted to say. He spoke quietly, which for anyone who knew him was itself remarkable. He said that he had watched the clip back several times and that it had been difficult to watch, not because of how it ended, but because of how it began, because of the voice he heard coming out of his own mouth when he walked over to that mat. The tone, the performance of it. He said he recognized something in that voice that he didn't like, something he had been carrying for a long time without fully seeing it. He said that Steven Seagal had offered him something at the end of that exchange that he had not earned and did not deserve, and that it had affected him more than anything else that had happened that morning. More than being put on the mat, more than the recognition. The kindness had been harder to absorb than the lesson, because he hadn't known what to do with it. He thanked him. The response to Marcus's video was extraordinary in its own right. People who had initially been harsh in the comments shifted completely. What had started as a story about humiliation had become something else, something about honesty, about the courage it takes to look at yourself and say "I was wrong," and say it publicly, without excuses, without deflection. Someone in the comments put it plainly. It takes strength to put someone on the mat. It takes a different kind of strength to stand up afterward and say what this man just said. Both things happened in this story. That is why we keep watching it. And they did keep watching. Weeks after the original clip, the view count continued to climb. Not through algorithm pushes or paid promotion. through people sending it directly to other people with messages like, "You need to see this and show this to your kids, and I have watched this 4 times, and I am still thinking about it." The clip found its way into training gyms around the world. Some coaches began showing it to their students, not as a technical demonstration, but as a conversation starter about what martial arts is actually for, about the difference between power and performance, about what it means to carry knowledge with humility rather than as a weapon. One instructor, speaking to a class of teenagers, paused the clip at the moment Seagal extended his hand and asked his students what they saw. A few said they saw sportsmanship. One said they saw confidence. A boy near the back of the room was quiet for a moment and then said, "He's not trying to win anymore. He already won. He's just being kind now." The instructor said nothing for a moment. Then he nodded slowly and said, "That is exactly right. There is something in this story that is worth sitting with, something beyond the drama of the mat and the reversal and the viral spread of it. There is a question underneath all of it that the story keeps asking in different ways. What do you do with strength? Not physical strength specifically, although that is part of it here, but any kind of strength. The strength that comes from experience, from knowledge, from position, from the simple fact of being better at something than someone else in a particular moment. What do you do with it? Do you use it to make yourself look bigger? Do you use it to put people in their place, to perform for an audience, to protect yourself from ever feeling small by making sure others feel smaller first? Or do you carry it quietly? Do you let it be available without advertising it? Do you use it when the moment comes, not to crush but to teach? Not to humiliate, but to open a door that the other person might choose to walk through? Marcus learned something on that mat that Wednesday morning. But the lesson he spoke about 3 days later, sitting in his car with his phone, wasn't the technique. It was the hand extended downward in a quiet gym. It was the genuine words offered without condition to someone who had earned nothing but a dismissal. The real lesson was that dignity does not require an audience. Strength does not require performance. And grace, true grace, is not what you show when things are easy. It is what remains when everything difficult has passed, and you still have a choice about how to treat the person in front of you. That is what the people who kept watching were really watching. That is what the instructor was pointing at when a boy near the back of the room found the words for it. That is what made the comments section fill with paragraphs instead of insults, with stories instead of noise. A quiet man walked into a gym one Wednesday morning. He was mocked before he had done a single thing to deserve it. He did not raise his voice. He did not retaliate with anger. He accepted a challenge with stillness, demonstrated something extraordinary with patience, and then offered kindness to the person who had least earned it. He finished his workout. He went home. And for weeks afterward, millions of people around the world watched a short clip on their phones and felt something shift slightly in how they thought about strength, about dignity, about what it actually means to be someone worth respecting. Not because of the technique, because of the hand.